Hello and welcome to Goals, Grit, and Some Woo-Woo Shit. Today I am talking to the world's worst mom. She was actually the star of a reality show with that title. Her name is Lenore Skenazy, and she first came to fame for letting her 9-year-old boy ride the New York subway alone. You might even remember hearing about that because it made the news globally. Since then, Lauren has written a book called Free Range Kids, and she's the president of Let Grow, which is an organization to lead the movement for childhood independence. Today, we talk about why modern parenting is riddled with fear, how school policies and surveillance culture are killing kids' confidence, and Lauren tells a story about how she worked with a mom who was still spoon feeding her 10-year-old son because she was afraid he was going to choke. You're going to love what happened next. Check it out.
Breaking news. Your dream life isn't going to happen because you made a vision board. You're going to need goals, grit, and some woo-woo shit. This podcast is about getting clarity on what you want, having the grit to do the actual work, and most importantly, constantly training your brain to be your bitch. Ready to be inspired? Here is your host, best-selling author, Una Duncan.
Lenore, thank you so much for being here.
Very psyched and extremely excited about the woo-woo shit.
Oh, cool. Okay,
we should jump right in.
Amazing. Awesome. If you don't mind, I know you're probably maybe sick of talking about it, but I would love to start with the big iconic moment when you let your 9-year-old son ride the New York subway alone. Now, did you have any idea that this would turn into global freaking news?
I've written probably between 2,000 and 3,000 columns in my professional life. I've been a newspaper woman my whole life, and the answer is no. And I wish that the other 2,999 had any impact whatsoever, and there's no indication that they have. So it was just odd that this one struck a chord.
Isn't it so funny? I even mentioned to my mom that I was interviewing you, and she said, "Oh, I remember that."
Right.
Yeah, it's
right.
Really
I'm a bit of pop culture history. Actually, when I email people now, one of the little things in my signature, which goes on and on, bragging about everything I've done. But one of the things is, look, I'm a Jeopardy question, because about a year ago yesterday, it was like she coined the phrase, blah, blah, blah. You know, she took it from chickens to kids. What is free range or what is Lenore?
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
So when that happened and you wrote that article about it, people started calling you the worst mom in the world. And obviously,
people started calling me America's worst mom. I only got bumped up to the world's worst mom later on. So
amazing.
Start small.
Good.
Right,
you got to work up that ladder.
Yeah, really.
So obviously you decided to roll with that. But what was your reaction at the time? Were you surprised? Did you feel attacked, defensive? Tell me about that.
I'd say all of those plus good. After I wrote the column, 2 days later, I was on the Today Show, MSNBC, Fox News, and NPR. And the thing about being on the Today Show is I wrote the column on a Tuesday. Wednesday, I was taken around the city by one of the reporters so you could see me and my son getting around the city or something. And that was just fun and upbeat, and we got ice cream, And then on the day, Thursday, that I showed up on the set of the Today Show, was me and my son, Izzy, who at the time had already turned 10. And then this other lady sitting on the couch. I'm like, all right, don't know who she is. And the interviewer, who was Ann Curry, was talking, and then the shot widens and says, well, Mrs. So-and-so or Professor So-and-so, the lady at the other end of the couch, as a psychologist, is what she did good? And it's like, no, there are so many simple, easy, and safe ways she could have let her son get some independence. For instance, she could have tracked him and followed him and hid behind, statues or something, columns in the subway and watched him. Or she could have put him in a group. And I'm like, well, if I thought he was ready to do this alone, why would I do those? I mean, the point is that I really thought that my son was ready. I know the subways. I know the city. I'm a reporter. All I do is travel around all day, different parts of the city, talking to people. And so if I believed he was safe, why is she suggesting that what I did was not safe and was foolhardy, and that I should have done something that was fake to let him feel independent while not letting him actually be independent? So that was weird. And then I guess a point of pride at this point, it's 17 years ago, is that I started my Free Range Kids blog that weekend, and I posted, I guess, the story that I'd originally written. And the first comment, 17 years later, but the first comment was, asshole. So I was like, okay. But there were also very, very many people, and to this day still are, people who said, thank you. This is how I want to raise my kids. I had such a great childhood. I got to, and if they were in the city, they got to ride, the trains or trolleys, depending on how old they are and where they're living. And if they were in the suburbs, I got to play, ride my bike. We stayed out till the streetlights came on. I cherished those years. They made me who I am, and I want to give them to my kid. And I'm not even sure why I'm not. And so this was just sort of opening the door towards saying, I think we've had our confidence leached out of us in part by the media. And the interesting thing about the question at the Today Show, and then at very many interviews since then, was it would go from, oh, did he have fun? Was it great? Was it easy? Blah, 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 to, but what if he hadn't come home? And by shifting it to the hypothetical and the catastrophic, suddenly we're talking about kidnappings, rape, murder, people being thrown on the tracks when none of that happened. And in fact, if I thought it was anywhere remotely likely to happen, obviously I wouldn't have sent him. So I feel like that's sort of why we are so afraid these days. We've been told that anytime you feel a moment of kind of breathing easy and things are going to be okay and my kid is ready and my neighbors are good, you're told, well, you think that now, but you're going to regret it. And once you get infected with that fear, it's very hard to de-infect yourself.
Totally. I want to talk about that culture of fear. And it was funny when I was reading about this experience and I kind of tested it on my mom's self. I was imagining my son at 9, and if I'd let him go on the subway, and I was like, yeah, no, I think I would. And then I said, well, what would I be afraid of? And I thought, not abduction. I don't think I'd be afraid of that. That seems pretty unlikely. And then I thought, I guess I'd be afraid that he would get disoriented and get scared. And then I thought, well, but that's okay. I mean, why would I want to protect him from that so badly? And there's also things I can do to help him orient himself and learn how to seek help when he needs it. But I guess I did have a little moment of like, oh, but what if he's scared? And it's funny that we want to protect our kids so much from that.
It's funny, and it's a little sad in that I think that's part of the infection again, is thinking that our job as parents is to keep our kids from ever feeling frustrated or sad or scared or disoriented or lost. I mean, there's a professor studying risk at Georgetown University. And her theory is that these days, kids are getting their independence so late, their ability to, walk around the city, go to the library, get an ice cream, go to the barbershop, that sort of Mother Nature put this drive to explore and play and, discover into kids, so that by the time they're 5 years old till 12, that's all they're doing. They're going to find their friends. They're going to climb a tree. Where's that squirrel going? Oh my God, now I'm lost. Oh, I'm going to be late getting home. And each of those little experiences is just a mini calibration of your riskometer. That was done. I won't do that again. Or that was harder than I thought, but it was fun. Or, oh my God, that was so easy. Wait till next time. And if you don't have those experiences with which to calibrate this, is something dumb or safe, she feels that the kid's riskometer is off, and it is pinging at 11 every time anything happens. And the study that she did as a sort of pilot study was she just asked kids in Russia and Turkey versus Canada and America to just come up with like a risky situation. And in Russia, which where she's originally from, college kids said things like, I'm coming out of a friend's home late at night, and there's a drunk on the street with a broken vodka bottle, and he starts lurching after me. And the American kids are saying like, being alone at a Starbucks or taking an Uber. And it's not their fault. If they've been told that everything is too dangerous, I'll drive you there, I'll pick you up, I'll watch you, how would they know what they could handle? And basically everything has been framed in this danger way. There's schools that won't let kids get off the bus unless there's an adult there to walk them home in first, second, third, I'm not sure, fourth or fifth grade. And then that holds true even if they're in a really safe neighborhood, even if they're 2 blocks from the house, from the bus stop, if they're 2 houses from the bus stop. And so we've sort of messed with their idea of what is safe. And parents who want a free range and want to let grow, that's my nonprofit now, can't in some cases because the school insists every child must be checked out before they leave, or we're going to send pictures home from camp every day so you see them and you can check on them. And it just becomes normal to worry unless you're in constant touch with them or physically or electronically always with them. So it's a mess. What can I say?
And it's interesting you brought up the differences in Russia versus Canada and the States, because I just got back from Japan, and it's very normal to see really young kids on the subway and going to school together, holding hands, their cute backpacks. Have you ever seen the show Old Enough?
I've seen Old Enough, sure. I have. I've never been to Japan though, so I envy you.
Oh, it's great. So if any listeners haven't seen Old Enough, it is a show about where they give toddlers a task, like go to the supermarket and buy some rice and some fish. Yeah, it's always fish.
Always making sushi.
Yeah, totally. And some, soy sauce or whatever. And then it's so cute. Just watch them figure it out. And it's so cute that they made a show out of it. Like they make it high stakes and high drama. Is he going to be able to cross the street by himself? And he always gets lost and then he doesn't remember the fish and whatever. But it's really cute. It's such a culture of little, very young kids doing these tasks and building their confidence in that way.
And also the parents are not shamed. Why would you let your 3-year-old go to the store? Why would you let your 4-year-old cross the street? Here, the American Academy of Pediatrics put out a white paper that galls me to this day. It came out maybe 4 or 5 years ago that said, we don't think that children under age 10 could be pedestrians by themselves. And it's like, really? Have you not seen any other country? Have you not lived in any other era? Have you not maybe even tried to let your 6-year-old look both ways and cross your quiet street? Because they can and they do. And it's almost like deliberate blindness to the capabilities of kids that even if you watch one episode of Old Enough, you'll see that it's not that kids can't cross the street. It's that you're not allowing them to. And if you don't allow kids to do anything, this is what we were just talking about before, then they don't develop those capabilities. And then they feel anxious because everything starts seeming too hard or something that somebody should be helping them with. Or if they get frustrated, why should I be frustrated? Where's somebody to help me? So we're really undermining their development in the guise of keeping them safe. Keeping them safe from what? Imaginary, highly inflated dangers. Or keeping them from developing this confidence and competence that we want to see in them, that we delight in seeing in these 4-year-olds from Tokyo.
Totally. So Lenore, what is going on with us culturally that makes it seem like giving a kid independence is almost abusive?
Well, it goes back to what we were talking about before. Everything is framed in the terms of, well, why wouldn't you want to keep your kids safe? And it's like, well, I do think I'm keeping my kids safe. Yes, but what if? And it's this what ifing that allows us to be shamed. Even when I was writing that first column, why I let my 9-year-old ride the subway alone, and I was talking to other people, one guy said, well, I don't want to be on on a talk show with somebody saying, well, Harry, why did you let her do that? It's so if we're always imagining this, and you're encouraged to what I call worst first thinking, you're encouraged to think of the worst case scenario first and proceed as if it's likely to happen. Obviously, that's not what's happening in Japan. Nobody is saying, think about how your kid could get, hit by a car or abducted or, hit by a falling object. And so it's a viewpoint. It's a way of thinking that is new. And it feels innate because we are innately hardwired, me too, to want to keep our kids safe. But your mom let you walk to school? What'd she let you do?
Oh, me? Mm-hmm. Oh, we rode, I was just telling this to my husband, we rode a city bus across the city by ourselves. I think the oldest kid was in grade 4 and I was in grade 2.
Where?
Calgary. But I was just telling him, I remember all the punk rocker teens coming on the bus and stuff like that with their big mohawks. We were kind of scared, but we dare each other to talk to them. And I mean, it was all very exciting.
It was exciting because it was real and you were trusted and you were part of it and you were doing something on your own. Yeah. And so what's different about today is your mother wasn't told, but what if she had never come home? Mrs. Duncan, what if something terrible happened? What if she was afraid? She was a little afraid. And that was great. I mean, that's that riskometer again, to know that like a little fear is something that doesn't mean much. A lot of fear means you better take precautions. You better get off the bus. You better sit next to the bus driver. So I feel like we have been brainwashed into believing that a good parent is always fantasizing their child in the worst case scenario. I mean, I don't even like to talk about it, but that's new, and that's what I'm trying to fight. And the only way you can fight fantasy is with reality. So when I started Let Grow with Jonathan Haidt, who wrote The Anxious Generation, and Daniel Schuckman, who was chairman of FIRE, which tries to get kids to be open to new ideas and free speech on campus, and Peter Gray, who's I would recommend highly as a guest. He wrote the book Free to Learn. He's a psychology professor at Boston College,
Right.
who has studied the importance of mixed age, no devices, no adult free play.
Yeah,
And
sort of unschooling, right?
he's an unschooler too, but his big thing is that kids learn when they're engaged, like you on the bus, like looking around, like, is this going to be okay? Can I talk to this person? How did they do their hair that way? All like when you're curious and excited, that's when you're learning. And when you're bored and somebody's telling you something for your own good that seems completely pointless, it's very hard to get information into you.
For sure.
Anyway, so when we started Let Grow, which grew out of Free Range Kids, our MO was that we were all thought leaders. Who cares? Thoughts just keep going in circles for most people. Oh, you're right, but what if it happened? I'd feel like I could never forgive myself. Forget it. So action is the only thing that rewires people. And so Let Grow recommends that all schools do what we call the Let Grow experience. All our materials are free. And what it is it's a homework assignment. This isn't a homework assignment, but it's a piece of paper that basically says, go home and do something new on your own with your parents' permission, but without your parents. And then we give a list. You could, climb a tree or go to the store or make pancakes or walk the dog, blah, 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 blah. It all depends on your kid, their interests, your neighborhood, their age, etc. And when the kid goes and goes to the store and gets the Jell-O or, climbs the tree. I was just reading an essay by a woman who let her kid climb really high in a tree. And then the mom went inside so she wouldn't have to watch her climbing down because it's too nerve-wracking. But once you let your kid do something on their own and they do it and they come in exultant because they got the Jell-O, or I can't believe it. I got the Jell-O, but I forgot to get the change, or I got the wrong flavor, or I got lost on the way home. Doesn't matter, good or bad. They've done something. They've proven themselves, and your heart flips. It just changes from terror to pride. And that's what allows you to let them go again. And then when they come in again, look what I did. Oh, okay, well, how about, and then eventually it's like, oh, here's the grocery list, come home by 7. And because you finally have reality determining your decisions rather than worst case scenario fantasizing.
I love that, because I assume you can probably tell people until you're blue in the face it's actually not that dangerous.
Right.
And they're just like, but what if my kid is the exception? And they're terrified until you get them to do a little challenge and see their kid be able to do it.
Right. And the reason we work through schools, we have like 1,000 schools doing this now, is because John Haidt always says a collective problem, which is, he talks about it with phones, everybody giving their kid a phone at a young age. If everybody gave them at an older age, then nobody would miss it. And another collective problem is nobody knowing when they're allowed to send their kids outside. There have been studies done. In fact, his organization just did one. But the University of Michigan found that the majority of parents of kids 9 to 11 won't let them play at the park with a friend, won't let them walk to a friend's house, won't let them trick or treat, and only 50% will let them go to another aisle at the store. So that's a collective, I know, frozen. Everybody's frozen with fear. Oh, I'd like to let her go, but if something bad happened, didn't something happen in 1979? Doesn't matter. Just that picture comes up and then you stop doing it. But if everybody is suddenly letting their kid go to the frozen yogurt place, or get herself to a guitar lesson, then you've renormalized it. And it changes the whole social norm back to sort of when we were growing up. My mom didn't sit there thinking I'm the world's worst mom. I'm letting my kid walk to school. It was just the norm back then. So if everybody's doing it, and then you reinforce each other. What did your kid do? Oh, my kid went to a guitar lesson. My kid has a lesson there too. Could they go together? Sure, they could. So it's just a way of breaking this ice. And what's amazing is that it feels like deep-rooted anxiety, like, no, I could never forgive myself. That's the phrase everybody always uses. But it turns out that the ice is very thin, and seeing your kid with the Jell-O, or walked the dog and met a squirrel on the way, or walked the dog and ran into her teacher, anything like that, it is so easy to crack that ice and let the sun come down. It's I've watched it over and over again. I did a television show filmed in Canada called World's Worst Mom.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that next.
Yeah, nobody watched it, but
that sounds so good. Well, wait, Lenore, let's tell them about this if you don't mind. Can we tell them about World's Worst Mom?
Oh, sure. So World's Worst Mom was filmed, it must be like 12 or 13 years ago, a long time ago already. And the idea was that the producers, the production company, interviewed 2,000 families to find the most nervous, 13 of the most nervous families. And the criteria were that the parents had to have like really clamped down on the kids and not let them do almost anything, but were willing to have become. And it was generally because the family was at not a manufactured, but a real crisis point. The first family they found me was a mom with her 10-year-old son, had married, remarried a guy with a 6-year-old daughter. And the guy with the 6-year-old daughter was letting her do all sorts of things, ride her bike, walk to school, etc. And the mom of the 10-year-old couldn't. And it was a lot of friction, not just between the husband and wife, but those kids. This 10-year-old boy is being bested by his 6-year-old little sister who's doing all the stuff he's not allowed to. And I'd never heard the word man cave before I did that, before I met that family. But the guy had a man cave in his garage, and he was always going there because it was just too much to deal with the wife's nervousness. She fed her 10-year-old in his mouth. She wouldn't let him. She
spoon-fed her 10-year-old son?
She spoon-fed her 10-year-old son. Mom, I can do it. I don't want you to choke. Let me just give you this piece.
Ooh,
it was
geez.
wild. She poured his juice for him. She wouldn't let him, ride a bike, go on an overnight, use a sharp knife, et cetera, take the bus in the suburbs of Toronto. And so the first thing I did was I sent, which is really the production company, sends the parents off to like a spa. And then I sat with the kid and I said, okay, you're going to learn how to use a knife. And I Googled it. How do you show somebody how to use a knife? And it's like, well, here's what you do. You hold something and you curl your fingers under. So when you're slicing, you can't possibly slice it. So we sliced, I don't know, a mango or something. And then, and that was easy. And he was very proud. And then you showed their sort of a live feed to the mom and dad, and the mom's going, ah, and she wasn't faking it. She was just very nervous. And anyways, he was fine. And then the next thing, we taught him how to ride a bike. And the thing that shocked me the most was that when we came back from teaching him a bike, he's a 10-year-old, and I hadn't wanted him to teach him on TV because I thought his friends will make fun of him. But you're as the host of a show, the production company has its way. And so it turned out it was great because he did learn how to ride a bike that afternoon. And when we came back, the mom ran into the house, and I'm following her, no cameras. And she told her mom, the grandma, Sammy can ride a bike. Sammy can ride a bike. And the grandmother was excited and the mom was excited, and they were dancing around so joyfully, so proud. And I was like, wait a minute, you're the ones who wouldn't let him ride a bike. You were scared. So that's when I realized that the equation is like, you can't do it until I see you can do it, at which point you can keep doing it. And my heart bursts with pride. By the end, she was saying things like she wanted to start an Overparenters Anonymous club at her office where she worked for the government. And the son was, the kids have to write down like things they want to do. And he was like, I want to go to New York City, from a kid who'd never been on an overnight before. We sent him on an overnight with the Boy Scouts. He joined the Boy Scouts. And that summer, kid who had never gone on an overnight and never ridden a bike, et cetera, your mom feeding him his mouth, went on 2-week overnight BMX bike camp.
Ooh, that's badass.
It's badass. And it's also just shows sort of like who was in there waiting to come out, right? Yeah. And it shows the mom who she is. She's the mom who lets that happen, who has a kid who wants to ride his bike on, I don't know, rocky terrain or whatever you do with a BMX bike. But it's just amazing. And that's why it's so easy to flip parents, because they are so hardwired as we are to worry about our kids. We are really hardwired to love watching them grow up. That's why you're so excited when your kid starts walking instead of just crawling. I mean, I still remember where I was. It's an absolute thrill. And so that's all I'm giving parents back, is just the opportunity to enjoy parenting instead of being so frozen with fear that you're with them every second. You're bored, they're bored. You don't see what they can do. They don't see what they can do. And everybody's a little neurotic.
Hmm. And you mentioned that you wanted to talk about the woo-woo stuff.
Yeah.
When parents are projecting this fear, anxiety, and control, what messages are the kids receiving about their own abilities? And the other thing I wanted to ask you is, do you think kids can be always innately trusted to know what their true abilities are? You know, if you've got a kid who's like, "Mom, I want to go walk on that whatever fence or something like that," and your mom gut is like, "Nope, that's a horrible idea." Do you think kids can always be trusted to know really what they can do?
Well, before we were talking about sort of calibrating the riskometer, I
Mm.
don't think a kid who has never done anything necessarily knows what's safe and what's not safe. But if you say, look, I'm allowing you to go to the store, don't go to the next neighborhood or stay on the sidewalk, and a couple of times, then they start looking around. I mean, I always think like, I barely drive. I'm not people think I'm an unnervous person. I'm very nervous, especially about driving. And so I'm always the passenger. And I don't know where I'm going because I don't have to know. Somebody else is driving. They're going to get me there. I'll get out. I'll give my speech. They'll drive me back to the train or the plane. And I feel like that with kids. I mean, sometimes it truly is being driven everywhere, but it's also, I'll talk to the waiter for you. I'll talk to the teacher for you. I'll get you there. I'll wait right outside. The iconic story that actually John Haidt says he's getting a little tired of. So, but I'll tell it to you, is that I once asked a bunch of kids, like, what were they ready to do? What would make them feel really independent? What would they like to do on their own? And one 8-year-old boy said he wanted to get to karate on his own. And I was like, okay, that sounds good. Tell me how. Bike or scooter or foot or what? And he's like, no, I open the car door and I get out and I close it and I look both ways and then I walk into the dojo. And so it was upsetting to me that he had no notion of independence.
His idea of independence is walking from the car to the building by himself.
While his mom parked the car in the parking lot.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think kids are, geniuses when it comes to everything. But I think that also going to that, like, what if they want to, balance on the median in a highway where everybody's going 80 miles an hour? You can't go there either. That's sort of like, what if they, get into a car with 3 clowns with knives? So what you do is you give them normal stuff to do in the neighborhood. Play with a neighborhood friend. This one lady gave me a great idea the other day. Why didn't I think of this? She said she's starting a friendship club. And by that, she meant that her son, who was like, I don't remember, 8, 9, or 10, had some friends in the neighborhood. And so she talked to those parents. And they made a friendship club is that her kid can knock on the door of any of these 4 houses. And if the kid is home and they want to play, they can play. But it's not like the parents have to call each other first or okay it, or is this an imposition? Do you mind? It's like, no. Your kid can come to my house. If it's lunchtime, they can make themselves lunch. If my kid's at your house, it's the same thing. So you just want to renormalize giving your kids back some agency in their lives to have some fun and have some adventures. And, we're so smart because we are old, right? We are our age. We've lived already. So we know that, if you stay out too late, it's going to get dark before the time you get home. But kids need those experiences. Otherwise, they don't have any way to become commonsensical because you've never given them an opportunity to start realizing, this doesn't work and this does work. And yes, there will be some tense moments. After I let Izzy ride the subway by himself, then I felt like, oh God, I guess I got to keep letting him do this. And sometimes it was dark, he'd go to his after school lessons and I'd be like, oh, it's 6, it's nighttime. It's night already. Where is he? And part of being a parent is living with that rotten feeling. Otherwise.
But you can't actually manage away. Like, even if you do all the controls, you're still going to have those dark thoughts every now and then. What if? Oh my God, what if the unthinkable
What if
happened?
it's like, it's getting late? Was I an idiot? Where is he? I mean, but you can't have kids and also have complete equanimity the whole time and no fears. I mean, that's not fair. I mean, that's like having a doll. You can have a doll and not worry about it, but you can't have a kid who has, legs and a heart and some great ideas and some rotten ideas and some willpower and some curiosity. You can't expect them to do only what you want them to do every single second, or be with you under supervision every single second to make you feel good so that you don't have to worry. That's just not fair.
Yeah. When you mentioned, giving your kids agency, my biggest issue right now, and I'm fully ready to be called out on this. If I let my kids have more agency, they would just spend all day playing video
on
games
their phones, right?
on their phones. So that is an area that I feel like I need to control more and more and more of. And I don't want to. I don't want to be that controlling. It doesn't feel good in any part of me. It's not who I want to be. And yet I get, maybe it's part of the culture of fear. I have the fear that they will never get off unless I intervene. Their brains will turn into mush. Where do you stand on the whole screen thing, and how much agency should kids have when it comes to managing their screens?
So let grow. When John Haidt wrote his book, The Anxious Generation, there are 4 new norms that he recommends that parents try to achieve for, the sake of their, to try to make it a less anxious generation. And 3 are about phones. One is don't give your kid a phone until they're 14, get phones out of the schools, don't give your kids social media till 16. We're neutral on all of those at Let Grow. We are the 4th norm. Give your kids more independence, kids-only time, free time, and responsibility in the real world. So what we're trying to do is bring that back. And I can understand being afraid that your kids are going to spend all their time on the phones, because if you don't let them have anything to do in the real world, they can't walk home from the bus stop. They can't go to the store. They can't climb a tree. I'm going to take them to soccer. I'm going to watch the soccer practice. I'm going to drive them home. Then what are they supposed to be doing that, what else do they have? Where else can they go to play, see their friends, and goof around other than online? So we've given them the virtual world, but we've taken away the real world. So Let Grow is dedicated to making it easy to give kids back the real world. And there's 2 ways to do it. One is, as I said, the Let Grow experience is give your kids real world experiences. Go get the milk, climb that tree, walk the dog, all that stuff that is in the real world. And if you can do it without tracking them or talking to them or texting them, just letting them go out, and you live with that uncertainty for a little bit, and they live knowing that you trust them, knowing that they can't just call you and say, I'm bored, or I'm tired, or come get me, or I can't find the bagel store, So they do things on their own, and you grow to trust them, and they grow interested in the world because they have to figure it out, and they're part of it. But the other thing that also seems really easy, and yet is not yet taking the world by storm, is keep those schools open for mixed age, no devices, free play after school. If you can keep the gym or the schoolyard, or if you're in a teeming tiny school, block off the street, with traffic cones for 2 hours after school, you've got the kids already there, right? You've got the mixed ages. For stuff, all they have to do is bring junk from home. Bring containers and buckets and old suitcases and cardboard Amazon boxes. And if they have those things plus a couple balls, they will have a ball. Kids are hardwired to play, and the only place we let them play now is on Fortnite. But imagine if they had real world friends. I mean, I've interviewed kids who have been, we call this a Let Grow Play Club. There's an adult there. They don't organize the games. They don't solve the spats. They're just there if there's a problem, like a lifeguard. And I interviewed these 3rd graders about what do you like better? Video games, because there's a lot of boys, or playing in real life. And they were poignant. They said, I really love video games, but then you take off your headset and there's no one there. Or I really like playing in real life, because then when I go to school, I see my friends again. And it's like they're longing to play, and we don't give them any way to do that except in organized activities, which are sort of like play, but it's not just goofing around, right? It's not coming up with your own quest or your own rules or arguing to say, let's try it this way. So play is really an important part of kids, and the reason that they're online is because it's a simulacrum of playing. They are talking to their friends. They are playing video games. They are making jokes. They're doing funny things. They're quests. But give that back in real life. And I talked to one headmaster of a school who started a play club 5 days a week after school. And his own kids sat there like this, his own 2 children on the bench the first 3 times. It's like, I can't believe it. Why can't we have our phones? This is terrible. Look. And then they started playing, because it's impossible not to play when you have friends around, and some stuff to play with. And after that, of course, it became their favorite part of their life. And if you go on, the Substack that John runs is called After Babel. And there's one post by a guy who's been running a play club at his South Carolina school for 5 or 6 years now. And the letters from the parents, forget how much the kids love it. The parents are like, my kid is a new child now. Now he's figured out finally how to play with his brothers because he's learned how to argue and get to the next point and how to compromise. I mean, all these social emotional skills, how to come up with a new idea, how to get buy-in, what to do when, your little brother wants to play, but you really want to do football. So, okay, we'll have him be the dog on the side. All the creativity that's involved in playing. And so the parents were writing these beautiful letters saying, my kid is so much happier and blossoming. And it's so easy to do. All you need is kids and a place and a time. So, and Let Grow has, a letter to send home to parents and a little pledge that the parents have to sign that says, I realize my child will not be happy every single second of play club. Right? Which is great. And kids have to sign one, I won't deliberately hurt somebody, but if they do, you take them out for that day and then they're back in because it's not the end of the world. And that's what would have happened if they were in the sandlot, go home. We're not playing with you. And then the next day, can I play? All right, but you better be better. Okay. So if we have a culture that's taken the play and the adventure, the responsibility and the growing up out of kids' lives, I would be searching for an alternate place too. I would be searching, I'd want to go to that wardrobe and end up in another world where I could play and I was considered smart and creative and energetic and capable. And that's the world online. That's the only world we've given them. So if you don't give them an alternative, of course they're going to be online. I would be.
And I'm not surprised that the parents were loving that so much to see how much their kids loved it, but also the relief. Because I know that there's a culture of fear, but I think there's also a bit of a culture of really high touch parenting, of expecting you to be playing with your kids all the time, entertaining your kids, making them organic, homemade, blah, blah, blah. I just feel like
in the shape of a heart.
Exactly. The standard for parenting, and I don't know if that's because everyone's, parenting on Instagram and it's all very performative. Pinterest parenting, yeah. But it does feel like, I guess what I'm wondering is how much of this is anxiety and fear culture versus also how much of it is parents being looking around thinking, oh, this is what's expected of me. I should have eyes on my kids at all time. I should watch their every move and be 100% engaged with them in every minute of every day.
Yeah, it's an impossible standard. And I think it's making both generations really bored. Right? Yes. The kids are always with parents. I know the tree starts with T, Mom. That's, it's like everything has to be a teachable moment. And the parents are stuck. There's an anthropologist named David Lancy, and I interviewed him for a blog post at Let Grow. And he said that other cultures look at parents like playing on the floor with their kids, I'll be the doggy, you be the cat. And they're like, huh?
What are you doing?
Right. It's just completely bizarre to them. It's as if parents were eating upside down. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Why are you doing this? You don't have to do this. But our culture is like there's never a demand that we to say is like, that's too much. It's like, oh, that's a good new standard. Yes, everything has to be organic. Yes, everything should be many textured and it should be a superfood. And plus it should be attractively arrayed. And don't forget the bento box, right?
Oh,
and teach your
kids
to use the chopsticks as well as their dexterous fingers. And then you have a culture that's doing this. It's hard for me to show on my phone, but a friend sent me the preschool notices that she gets from her kids pre-K every day. And it tells you, she ate 17 orange segments, but she only ate, 2.5 nuggets. And by the way, you sent in a granola bar and didn't we say no because there's added sugar? And she went to the bathroom at 10:27 in the morning and at 12:02 p.m. and at 3:26, she actually had a BM, not just pee. And it's like, how granular are you supposed to be? But part of it is that the culture sends you this information and then you start thinking like, I guess I'm supposed to care how many orange segments she ate and exactly, did she, it was 3:02 she peed and not 3:07. Right. Are you sure?
Yeah. Is that good? Is that bad? What am I supposed to make with this information?
Right. NASA, we have the information we need. So it's just, I feel bad for parents because nobody wants to parent this way, but they're in a culture that keeps insisting that it's normal to be terrified every minute, fantasizing the worst, obsessing about every detail, and worried that you're going to be called out. That's a pretty tough culture.
Yeah, it is. Lenore, are you ever worried that people might
I'm always worried.
misunderstand?
Didn't we establish that? I'm always worried, just not about strangers and not about the subway.
Well, what I'm asking is, are you ever worried that people misunderstand your message and they do neglect their kids and call it free range?
You know, the New York Post delights in finding these families. Every couple of years, they run a
sorry.
story about like this horrible New York, look,
Mm.
they're free range. They feed their kids, heroin and let them play, in traffic. But for the most part, that's not a real worry. And I don't even like the term, the joking term benign neglect. I was raised with benign neglect. That wasn't neglect. You were raised with trust. You were raised with trust and some independence. So it's not neglect. It's benign love, trust, and care, right? So I'm not worried. I worry about the opposite, which is that just trusting your kid can be mistaken for neglect. I mean, you probably heard of the story that was out of Georgia a couple months ago, where a mom left her son at home. He's 10. He decided to walk to town, 370 people, and she was arrested because she didn't know where he was for that hour. And it's like, you can't pretend that the child was in danger when a 10-year-old can completely walk to town, or that the mom was neglectful simply because her son did something and she didn't know exactly where he was for an amount of time. Neglect is when you really don't give your kid the food, the shelter, right? The love that they need to thrive. And that's pretty much all you have to give them in terms of once you've answered those, that's not neglect. So I think it's pretty obvious that neglect is not just trusting your kid, but I worry when the government thinks that it is. Not when parents mistake it and start thinking, I can leave my kid for a week and nobody will, that's fine. That's free range. That doesn't happen.
And I'm wondering how do race, class, gender affect which parents are allowed to be free range without consequences?
Well, I'll tell you the horrible statistic. I don't know the statistics in Canada, but in America, a kid up to age 18 has a 37% chance of having a call made to the hotline that they're neglected, or to, like the neglect and abuse hotline. But if you're black kid, 53% chance that Child Protective Services will be called on them at some point. So more than half of black children will be the subject of a call saying, I don't think his mom is doing it right. So
that is
it's
shocking.
Horrible. Yeah.
Do you discuss that at all with your community who are free ranging their kids? Do you talk to them about how to talk to other people about their choices and to not face that kind of, legal consequences?
Yeah. So what we've been doing in the legal realm is that we try to get states to pass what we call reasonable childhood independence laws. Most states say neglect is failing to provide proper care. Okay, what's that? I think a 7-year-old walking to town is perfectly safe. You think I'm going to let my kid do it when he's 17. Okay, we have different ideas, but our law it clarifies that neglect is when you put your kid in obvious and serious danger, not anytime you take your eyes off them. And that law helps the free rangers, how upper middle class, they could be billionaires who just want their kids to play outside on the cul-de-sac. But it also helps the single moms raising a kid and they're working 2 shifts. And so they let their kid come home with a latchkey from 3 to 5 when mom is still at McDonald's. And that also says that that's not neglect. Neglect is when you put your kid in serious and obvious danger, not anytime you take your eyes off them. So we've passed our law in 8 states so far. And at the end of this week or next week, it's passed 3 more states through the state legislature, but then the governor has to sign it into law. So in 3 more states, we're waiting for the governor to sign it into law, and then it'll be 11.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, it is. This was a great year. Last year we passed none. So This was a nice year.
So like you mentioned, it's been, 17 years since the incident with your son on the subway, which was a non-incident, which is the whole point.
Yeah, really. That's the whole point. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I actually, one of my points I make sometimes is that the minute you hear the word incident, you know that nothing happened. Right? Incident is like dog whistle for 0.
Right. So it's been 17 years. Has anything changed? I mean, stuff like this is changing. Do you think it's changing for the better or the worse overall?
Yeah, I never know. I mean, I could really argue pretty well. It's like the only thing that I can argue both sides for. I'd say the good side is that just I spoke in a neighborhood in a town in California, like near San Francisco, maybe a month ago. And last week they forwarded me the notice that they sent out to everybody in the town. Please drop your kids off at the park for free play Fridays from 3 to 5 in this park or that park. That's right, drop them off, don't stay. Your kids will be fine, they will have fun. And I thought, about 15 years ago, I'd proposed a holiday, take our children to the park and leave them there a day. And it went around the world. It was so controversial. How dare you suggest we let our kids stay at the park? Don't announce it. All the predators will come. They'll have a field day. It'll be rounding up the cattle, except they'll be our children. And now this nice neighborhood in California is saying the same thing with different words. Drop your kids off at the park, take your children to the park and leave them there every Friday afternoon so that the kids get used to playing on their own and we get used to not being with them. And that's normal. I mean, so I feel like something is allowing that to happen. And something is partly it is worry that our kids are so anxious and so overscheduled and so passive that we recognize we better do something. We don't want to have another anxious generation. So part of that's great, I'd say. But the thing that has really changed in 17 years is the ability to always be, talking to, texting, and tracking your kid, which wasn't the case back then. And I feel like that's normalizing the idea that your child out in the real world is in constant danger. So if you're not tracking them, you're neglectful because something terrible could happen to them. And that sort of changes what you think of the world and your kid, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, technology has presented all sorts of other issues, but for me, the big issue is tracking. And nobody's going to get rid of tracking because it is convenient. Oh, my kid's almost home. I'll, make the pasta. But there's something weird about being able to solve all their problems from afar. That's not good.
Yeah, I see it. I'm sure so many people are going to be really intrigued by this. What's the best way for them to follow this movement and your work?
Oh, so obviously it's Let Grow, like it says down there. I'm sorry, my hair looks so horrible. I tried so hard. Oh my gosh! Don't follow me for hair advice. But what I really suggest is, so at Let Grow, you'll find all of these materials that you can give to a teacher or a school, and I would recommend going with some other parents who think it's a good idea. And remember, all of it is free and it doesn't take much class time. If your school isn't interested in starting this, you could do your own free play Fridays like that town in California. You just send out an announcement, drop your kids off. It'll be great. We also have an independence kit. It's the same thing. It has the same list of like walk the dog, climb the tree. And you could do it. But once again, I always think it's easier if you do it with somebody. So if you can't get a whole school to do it, sometimes a church will do it. I can't wait. I'm talking to a mega church next week. Or you could just do it with 3 friends, or start that friendship club in your neighborhood and just find a couple of houses where your kid is allowed to knock on the door and those kids can knock on your door, just to re-normalize kids being out and about, making some of their own arrangements and having a little bit of a life separate from you so that you have a little bit of life separate from them.
For sure. Love it. Thank you so much for coming to chat with us about this. I've loved this conversation.
Okay, cool. Well, also you can write to me. Anybody can write to me. I'm Lenore at letgrow.org. I love hearing these stories, really. I mean, I send them to my board. I put them on Twitter. I just need to hear of kids doing new things and of parents being amazed. So please share.
Love it. Will do.
Okay.
Thanks, Lenore.
All right. Thanks, Una. Bye.
Hey, I hope you liked that interview with Lenore. I'll tell you one of my biggest takeaways. So as you might know, if you've caught recent episodes, our family has been trying to be much more tech intentional. So when I asked her about giving kids more autonomy about screen time, I love that she mentioned that kids will be less likely to spend time on screens if they have a compelling alternative. And it reminds me of when I was researching the secrets to long-term relationships for a course I was teaching. And I learned that in order to have a successful long-term relationship, you need an at least 3-to-1 ratio of positive experiences with someone to negative experiences. And ideally, you want like 5-to-1 or even more. And that makes sense. But what I thought was so interesting is that the research shows that the better play is not to focus on eliminating negative experiences like the conflicts you have with someone. You never will. Some things are just going to not resolve. It works better if you focus on creating more positive experiences with that person. So I was thinking about this and the conversation with Lenore, and it reminds me of how we tend to focus on what we don't want. And we spend so much energy trying to fix problems versus taking that same energy to create more of what we do want and just improve that ratio. So like Lenore said, instead of managing screen time and micromanaging every little app and all that, we instead enable analog experiences that are way more exciting than, say, video games. In fitness, for example, instead of focusing on losing fat, cutting carbs, quitting sugar, instead, you take that energy and you focus on building muscle and making food and doing food prep to make food that's so yummy and so healthy. Or you might remember my recent guest, Rachel Rogers. She's the author of We Should All Be Millionaires. And she talked about women and money and how women are almost always told to scrimp on expenses versus building wealth and earning more money. So that's one of my big takeaways. Focus more on what you want and spend your energy building that versus trying to fix what you don't want. That was something that struck me, but I would love to hear what struck you in this conversation. So feel free to hit the SpeakPipe link in the show notes, and I'll look forward to hearing what you got to say. See you next week. Hey dude, thanks for listening. If you like this episode, make sure you're subscribed so you can get the next one. And by the way, if you rate and review this podcast, it really helps me get found by other people who need some goals, grit, and some woo-woo shit. And be sure to connect and DM me at Una Duncan on Instagram and let me know what you thought of the episode. Chat soon.